Well, the latest edition of Brandon Marcello's College Football Power Rankings are out over on CBSSports.com. Some synergy with the AP poll, as you'd expect. Brandon has Oregon as the #1 team, Georgia #2, but didn't penalize Ohio State for their nail-biter Saturday. Keeps them at 3. Miami and Penn State complete the top 5. All right, so let's welcome in Brandon Marcello from 24/7 Sports and our college football analyst, Danny Kanell, here to break down these rankings. At least a few teams here just outside the top 5. We have former #1 Texas sitting there. They remain outside despite rebounding from last week's loss to Georgia by seeing off a pesky Vanderbilt. For you, Brandon, what is it that's keeping them at 6 instead of bumping them up?
Yeah, I kept them at 6, a little stagnant. I did like the way Quinn Ewers responded after that early pick and then falling behind 7-0, taking a scoring 3 touchdowns, go up 21-7, having to hold on the second half when they ran the ball a little bit more. Vanderbilt very salty, as we've seen all throughout this season. I'm actually feeling a little bit better, just a tad bit better about Texas, the way they've responded on the road at Vanderbilt, but obviously not enough to move them up. I feel comfortable keeping them there at 6.
I might have dropped them, Brandon, because what we saw from Jeremy, you're giving them all this love for going against Vanderbilt, a team that, yes, has been pesky, except against Georgia State, who they lost to, who is a bottom dweller in the Sun Belt. I think we're giving them way too much credit. We were sitting here on Saturday morning, and I said, Texas, I'm putting them on fraud alert. I'm not ready to go there and call them complete frauds because I still think they're a pretty good football team. And I think it's relative to the expectations when they were a #1 team in the country and a national championship contender. I wanted to see more of them in Nashville. I wanted to see them completely shut down Diego Pavia with that defense, to have a game which at least even closer to covering the point spread. Jeremy, you know this? Good teams win, great teams cover.
Yes.
I think Texas is a good football team right now, but I would have dinged them a little bit more. And you consider the way they lost to Georgia was pretty embarrassing. They got pushed around on the offensive side of the ball by that Georgia defense, which was phenomenal. So I'd almost be looking at Texas a little bit more speculation on just how great is this team.
Are they still on fraud alert?
Oh, yeah,
After the
absolutely.
win?
Yeah, they didn't prove anything to me after this past weekend. That was just a win.
Well, the good news is they're off this week, so we've got more time for Quinn Ewers to heal up. Hasn't looked the same since the oblique injury. They get Florida coming next. All right, after tumbling down the rankings last week, Alabama began their climb back towards a college football playoff spot. They shut out Missouri 34-0 to keep their playoff hopes alive. With only one more game against a ranked opponent, that's the next one, at LSU. What does their path to the playoff look like at this point, Danny?
I don't think they're a playoff team. I don't think Bama has looked like a playoff team. I don't think their resume is deserving of a playoff spot. Yes, clearly it would go a long way if they beat LSU. I mean, they have to win out. I think they need to win out with style, including a big win against LSU where it looks impressive. And I get that they got things back on track versus Missouri, but that's a Missouri team that, again, was one of the more overrated teams for the beginning part of the season. Missouri already got absolutely boat raced against Texas A&M early this season. For me, it's about getting Jalen Milroe back in the comfort of this offense, being able to get the running game going, all things they did against Missouri. Again, a weaker opponent. Now they have to do it against LSU. If they do that, I'll give them a sliver of a chance, but I don't think their resume stacks up as good as anyone thinks. It's that one win against Georgia, which they are hanging their hat on.
Yeah, and they should hang their hat on that. That's a huge, gigantic win. No one's been able to come close against Georgia other than Alabama, and they boat raced them in the first half and held on, of course. So I give them a lot of credit for that. They win out, they will be in the playoff, Alabama. Obviously, here in 2 weeks at LSU, that is very much a playoff elimination game. I know we talk a lot about that in this sport, but that is legit a playoff elimination game. If Alabama can go into the Bayou and beat LSU, whether it's by 1 point or 20 points, and then wins out, no matter the results going forward, I think Alabama is going to be in the playoff.
It's not definitive, though, Brent. They need help. There are still a lot of undefeated teams that I think will leapfrog them if they continue to win. Because at some point, we have to get to a point where we give credit for teams for winning games. And I think there are several teams they need help from, especially in the Big 12. Iowa State, BYU. And again, I think some of those will lose, but they're starting to need some help. So I don't think it's just control your own destiny. They also need a little bit of chaos to happen in college football.
It's going to be fascinating to see how the playoff committee rates the teams in their very first rankings here. They've talked a lot about how they weigh strength of schedule and everything. So do they make some moves here that look quite a bit different from my power rankings, and for that matter, the AP poll? I don't think we're talking enough about how things might look a little bit different in this first set of rankings than what we're expecting going in. I can't wait to see what they do next week.
And just remember, I mean, the SEC, it's just different, Dan.
Yeah, it just
different.
means more. It just gets more credit.
Yeah. Okay, Colorado are into the top 25 in the AP poll. They also into the power rankings. Brandon has them at 22. Dion says, look, we don't want to be ranked. We want to be in the dark, just chilling. Their schedule, it's not a murderer's row by any means, Brandon. Are we saying that there's a playoff chance here?
Yeah, potentially, but they've got to win out, obviously, and they've got to probably win the Big 12 as well in that crazy, crazy system there. But they are in the hunt for a Big 12 title. Let's just stay in the here and now. This has been a great turnaround by Colorado, obviously, over these last 2 years for Deion Sanders. But more specifically, since that Week 2 loss at Nebraska, I think a lot of us piled on them and said, look, they're the same team they were last year. They can't block up front. They can't get a pass rush. But now they've gotten better week to week since that game. They're improving. And not are they just winning, but they're getting it done with defense. And they're also running the ball effectively here these last 2 games. In fact, 3 of the last 4, they've rushed over 100 yards, and they've closed out games by wearing opponents down in the trenches. You love to see it from Colorado, finally getting things going, playing winning football as well. And it's interesting, Deion Sanders says, don't rank us, but he's also saying, hey, why is Shedeur Sanders not in the Heisman race? Can't have it both ways. But listen, Colorado, very much deserving of being in the top 25. Let's see if they can keep getting better down the road here, because they got a conducive schedule to make a run here and maybe challenge for a 9 or 10 win season.
Brandon, Jeremy, my ex-mentions were getting lit up on Saturday night. Joel Klatt, former Colorado Buffalo lead analyst for Fox, put out a thing calling out the haters for Colorado. Last year, I was very much a hater. I thought they were the most overrated, overhyped team that we've seen in the last 50 years of college football. Coming into this season, I kind of came with a blank slate. They had another revamped roster, so I gave them the benefit of the doubt, said, let's see what happens. And like you, Brandon, after Nebraska said, uh-oh, it could be a long season. But you have to give credit to this team and the job that Deion has done for making them a really good football team. They're starting to get good wins, something they lacked last year. And as much as we talk about Travis Hunter, and we should, and as much as we talk about Shedeur Sanders, and we should, we are not talking about the job their defense has done, where they don't have to rely on the heroics of their quarterback and their superstar two-way player. The defense is actually playing with much more physicality. This is one of the more improved teams in the country, so they absolutely deserve that chance. But I do think with you, Brandon, I think the only way they get in the college football playoff is somehow they find themselves playing in the Big 12 championship and win it. I think that's their path, which I think is still pretty unlikely.
And one of the things, too, that you have to notice is they're playing as a team.
Yeah.
They're playing as a team this year.
Yep.
Right? Which is something that obviously is very important. Can't win this game if you're not playing with a team. All right, Brandon Marcello, Danny Kanell, thank you very much, gentlemen. Latest college football power rankings are up over on CBSSports.com. Be sure to go and check that out. And Cover 3 Podcast, you want to be checking that out because it is the best college football podcast out there. Yes, I'm biased, but it's true. Danny's a part of that. Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli, Bud Elliott. Latest episode is a recap of what happened on Saturday night. They go live at 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time and recap all of the day's games. You can download and follow wherever you get your pods or scan that QR code. You can listen to that recap episode right now.